Travis, welcome to the Uncharted Podcast. I think life is interesting, right? Like, there are certain things that tell me I'm on the right path sometimes. And like, I got a call a month ago about speaking at a middle school class. I didn't know what it was. It's like 8 kids. I'm like, sure, you know? I go in there, talk to the kids, and then one of them is your son. Yeah. And then you emailed me and just said, hey, cool, you know, we should grab a beer sometime. We did. I had no idea who you were. The more I dig in, the more I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe like I got connected to this guy. But here we are now. Literally, we met a couple days ago. So thanks for being game, first of all.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And second of all, what happened to your arm and your leg? It looks like the left side of your body got in a fight.
It's nothing exciting, really. Well, I guess it depends how you look at it. Basically, it was I was doing about 40 miles per hour and hit a marmot. And
40 miles per hour on what?
On the Alpine slide.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they went 40 miles an hour.
It felt like it was 40 miles per hour. Let me put it that way. I was probably doing 20 or 25, but I was hauling butt and I was moving out. And this thing came out of the track and I hit it and it threw me out of that tube. And I actually went so high, I went out of the corner and landed back in the tube on the other opposite corner and slid for about 25, 30 feet. And, luckily, I had one of my backpacks on because it is totally like melted on the backside of the backpack. And could
have been worse.
I took the brunt with my left arm and knee. So yeah, and then I had a massive fiberglass allergic reaction when I got home, like bad. I couldn't breathe. It was and then it went away.
All the things you've done in your life, a marmot almost took you out.
Dude, I would have been so mad, right? Like I don't know. I'd had to talk to somebody wherever I got, whichever way I got. I would have said, "Hey, what's up with this?
Yeah,
why am I here because of a marmot?"
Well, that's amazing, and it's funny too because. I grew up on a farm in Wisconsin, and we didn't take a lot of vacations, but I have an uncle that lived in Salt Lake. And I remember one of the trips we took one time was we came out here, and my cousin, I remember we went on the Alpine slides, and I remember she had this like new Utah Jazz starter jacket, which I thought was so cool. And I remember her wiping out and melting the side of it. So
fiberglass is fun.
Yeah, it definitely creates friction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, that said, the fact that the marmot is ironic. Who's Travis Haley? Why don't we start there? I'll let you define it because I feel like there's different narratives, and I don't want to give the wrong one. But how would you do it?
Well, I mean, it depends where I'm at in the world. If I'm at home, I'm just a guy that takes the trash out. You know. No, I spent a majority of my life in the military, in the Marine Corps, in the Force Reconnaissance Community Special Operations, and that was kind of I've always wanted to do that from being a kid. I grew up on the stories of my father in Korea, in the Air Force, and my grandfather in World War II. I got to grow up on the actual stories. There was no sugarcoating. So, and I found out later in life I come from eight generations of gunfighter, as we call it, I guess, a warrior.
8 generations.
Yeah, back to the American Revolutionary War. I was able to track back military documentation and records of my family, and I thought that was cool. I actually figured that out in the last year and a half, looking into it, because my parents didn't even know.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of people do it because that's their culture and it's what they've been told or the stories, but you didn't know.
That's what I thought, right? I thought
growing up, I
thought growing up maybe that was my destiny, you know? And, I wanted to jump out of airplanes and kill the bad guy if I had to. I figured that was obviously a lot more than that. Mm-hmm. And but I being fortunate enough to grow up on those stories, and I think what was empowered and instilled into me was doing more than what's required of you. And and that's of course changed throughout my life now, and self-reflection and realizing that the savior complex that a lot of us have. We want to go overseas, we want to help people. You start to self-reflect and realize where you really are. So that's right. That's where I'm kind of going today, and helping in different ways. Because obviously I can't go overseas anymore. I can't do the things that I used to do.
So you started as a Force Recon Marine. And to that point, people are probably like, well, is that like the Navy SEALs? Because that's what's in the new. Basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Marines were always the few and the proud, and they kind of felt like they were the special forces, right? So the Force Recon Marines was something that happened after all the other special forces were designed, because the Marines were kind of like, well, we are all special forces.
Well,
right?
The reconnaissance community dates back way back when. I mean, World War II. Back when some of the first special operations groups were started, or they didn't call them that back then, but we come from the Raider, the Marine Raider lineage, and that was started in World War II. So we've been around for a very long time.
Who were the Raiders, by the way?
The Raiders were kind of the recon Marines of World War II, and then Korea and Vietnam, and then in every conflict since.
And recon being intel? Generally, like reconnaissance is kind of getting data, isn't it? It's not going in and shopping.
And that's the unique thing about the Marine Corps side of the house, is because, like, if you look at the SEAL teams have a very specific job. We do a lot of different things. We try to be the jack of all trades, which is what we call ourselves in the recon community. But like SEALs, their meat and potatoes is underwater demolition. Now, they do a lot of other things. You have specialty units inside the SEAL teams, and same with the Special Forces, Air Force pararescue, and combat controllers and stuff like that. But the recon teams are unique because there's only about 300 of us at any given time active duty in the military. And those teams are split across East Coast and West Coast, and then we're typically out overseas for 6 months at a time, every year and a half. So right now there's 2 teams out around the world sitting on a boat, right, or traveling from different country to country. And then anytime there's a 911, as we call it in the world, we have to be able to respond within 24 hours as an entire Marine Air Ground task force.
How big are these teams?
25 guys on average. And then you have the entire ship of 3,000 Marines, air crews, Harrier jump jets, Cobras, all the other teams, infantry units that support those missions. So if we need to take down the Somali pirate takedown that you saw on the movies, or any type of piracy issue, where we do well at that. And then anytime we need to go in and collect data to send back to the Pentagon, to keep it simple, or a Secretary of Defense say, hey, here's the situation here, and nobody will even know we're there. So we may pop into Africa or into some places in Indonesia, all over the world, and we're doing these deep reconnaissance missions to give intelligence back so we can make better informed decisions. So we're the guys on the ground doing that, and we have to do it very quickly. So we have to all be high altitude parachutists. We all have to be combat divers. Majority of the teams are snipers. Everybody's a surveillance expert, camera expert. That's why they call us a jack of all trades. We're some special forces teams where there's over, I don't know, don't quote me here, but I think there's over 10,000 special forces guys. So they'll have specific missions that they'll do, but guess what? We're on the boat. The commander says, hey, we got a 911. You guys need to be the jack of all trades. So it's a unique job. It gives us the opportunity to travel. You'll hit 25, 30 different countries, sometimes in a couple of deployments. And so you get to really see the rest of the world and work with all different types of units and organizations and do every job possible. So you got to be good at it. You can't be just a jack of all trades and the master of none. You have to literally master them, because you can't jump out of an airplane at 30,000 feet and not master it, right?
And it takes a while to get to that compezy, right?
It does.
It's not just go through boot camp and you're ready to go.
No, it takes years.
Years. Yeah. And is there ever, I think it was like a Joe Rogan podcast. He's talking to Tim Kennedy, and he was claiming there's a shortage of people that are even capable of doing this anymore, just because our culture is generally more video games than football. Let's call it that.
It's definitely getting tougher to find people. They're there. I think the genetics are there. The people are out there. Again, we get shifted in different ways in our lives, and I think it's getting harder to do that. Even with all the information that we have, I just don't think we're as an informed society like we used to be. Because I remember being a 9-year-old kid, that's what I want to do. I want to be a Force Recon Marine.
Well, and I read somewhere that a guy in a uniform walked in and you were just like, oh, that's...
I wanted to be a pilot. I want to be. I've grown up flying as a little kid with my dad, and that's all I wanted was aviation. I wanted to be an A-10 fighter or an A-10 pilot. And one day, this guy walks into my brother's high school wearing a Marine blues and had the little wings and scuba bubble on his chest. And I was like, what is that? I knew what a Marine was, but I didn't know what that was.
Why do you think you were so in tune to those 2 little badges or pins?
I don't know. Maybe because I knew what a trident was, a Navy SEAL trident was. And so I always looked at different insignias, and I always tried to figure out what they were. And then when I saw this, I looked into it, and whatever I could find back then, I was like, that's something drawing me to that. I want to be... I want to be that jack of all trades, and I've always done that all my life. I grew up on a farm as well, and you got to do a lot of different things, and you got to be good at it, right? So I figured that me being that kid that loved to swim, loved to run, loved to be outdoors, loved to work and have my hands in everything. I don't know, something maybe. Because that is a different area in special operations.
So how many years did you do that job?
About total years 15, including active and reserve.
And how many years were you just Marines before you went to Force? Is there kind of a...
Yeah, I started out in the infantry because back then you couldn't just go right in. Nowadays they have different programs and different selections you can work up through as a younger guy, because I think of what we're dealing with in society, and again, there's only a few hundred of us at any given time. So, and our biggest problem that we have in our community is that we don't advertise. You don't see movies about Force Recon Marines. You don't see movies about Marine Raiders.
Why is that?
Maybe it's a pride thing. And I get it, right? It's a tradition. We want to be silent professionals, but at the same time, that's a double-edged sword, because look at the SEAL teams. They have no problem recruiting nowadays. Obviously, they're special forces guys.
Right.
You get all these great movies and great stories about these guys going out there and doing amazing things. That might entice that kid or empower or inspire or educate that kid to go, you know what, that's what I want to do. And I think that's where I was lucky to find that little sliver.
Sure.
And I think we pride ourselves on finding that and being a very unique, small organization. But at the same time, we got to keep our numbers up too. So I don't know. It's maybe one day there will be.
Man, so this is an interesting journey, and we're just in step one. So did you call it retired at that point? You did 15 years.
No, I didn't retire. I wanted it. My wife and I were separated for 3.5 years, East Coast to West Coast. So that was tough, right? And there was a couple of combat deployments between that time. And I think it was kind of like, we're ever going to have a family? We're ever going to actually settle down? I was like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And at that point, I realized there's other opportunities out there. So I wanted to go to more 3-letter agency type stuff, so stay in the government and retire, career guy, because there's things that you always think, hey, grass is greener on the other side, let's go and do some higher CIA stuff is what I was really looking at, trying to get into more. So I said, hey, well, I can make my own time, my own schedule by contracting through certain companies, and we can have this family, right? So, of course, I get off active duty. I stayed in the reserves, though. So, and then I started looking at different opportunities there, and that's when, as soon as I got out, as soon as I landed in San Diego with my wife, the company Blackwater called me and said, hey, it's a new company at the time, very fresh contracts they had, and they said, we'd love to have you on the Ambassador Bremer protection detail in Baghdad. And I was like, oh my God, it's a huge honor, right, to be on the presidential envoy's detail. And so I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I hung up, and my wife's like, who was that? And I was like, uh-oh, I got to leave in 2 weeks. So, and then I did that for a while, and started my first company, more as a tax write-off, but with the intent to have a training company, because I love sharing knowledge. I love passing, on the experiences that we've all had, and through failure and success. And
I think the term knowledge transfer comes up a lot when you're talking. Like, I kept seeing that term, and I love that, because it's, man, you have some experiences that just, there's no other way to learn what you've learned except by doing them, right?
Yeah, and I love to share them, because it is hard to talk about those things. And so that's what I kind of do with my companies now, is figure out what is the best way to inform people about what they might be getting themselves into, or maybe what they've already been through and they don't understand it. And so that's why I love the science aspect of what we do now with performance.
And I totally want to get into this, because I think this is the applicable part to people, is the mental and the physical aspect of performing your job. But before we get there, I know there's like a couple famous stories that you're known for. And I love, like, when I'm listening to podcasts, I love those stories where I can just kind of drive down the road and like go through the situation in my head.
Okay.
You've got a few where you kind of jumped into the middle of a real bad situation, and you're still sitting here. But can you give us a few examples of just some interesting special forces or Blackwater type situations that really were crazy, at the very least?
Well, I think one of the big ones that stands out to people, because it was one of the first times that people saw modern combat footage in the war in Iraq on YouTube, because it was a brand new platform at the time.
Right.
And so Yeah, and also going back to jumping into things, that's where I'm a pretty impulsive person, innately, and so with that, I was always the guy that's like, hey, let's go, I'll be the first off the ramp, I'll be the first down the fast rope, I'll be the first through the door if I can. Obviously, I don't think that way anymore because it could be dangerous. Now I think towards, like you always hear, run to the sound of gunfire. It's like, let's think to the sound of gunfire. Don't run towards it because that can.
Did you used to run towards the sound of gunfire?
I think we all did, yeah. And
why do you think that? Like, what made you?
I don't know.
Run the opposite direction of everyone else.
Man, that's a great question. I'm still trying to figure that out to this day. I know cognitively because I do a lot of psychological studies, and cognitively, not cognitively, meaning your innate instinctual self. I'm definitely a quick starter, very high, so I love risk and uncertainty. I love being raced against the clock. I love putting the timer on me. I love the race. I love the competition, not necessarily for others, but for myself to see, like I'm constantly pushing my own levels of homeostasis to see if I can move it up so I can see what's next, right?
Right.
I don't like titles. I don't like systems. I don't like recipes. I don't like status quos. I'm always kind of going, what's above these things that people call, these catchphrases like intermediate or advanced or, master or grandmaster. What's above that, man? Because it's coming, right? I mean, we've always excelled. And so I think I've just always had that innate mindset and execution. And, that's good to a certain point if you are, I think, innately a quick starter, what we find in our research. But I can certainly get ahead of my headlights. And, of course, I've been successful a lot doing that. And, of course, I failed a lot doing that.
I mean, would you say there's a certain element of luck involved? Because call it a stray bullet could have changed, you know what I mean? Like when you're running into things...
Yeah, we don't ever like to use the word luck, I guess, in a gunfight, but because you want to do, right? You want to get it done. You want to be there and be in the right place at the right time. But I do agree with, I think it was Clint Eastwood that said at one time in one of his movies, I don't give a damn how fast you run. When your time's up, your time's up.
Yeah.
Or how good you are. Or like, I think another great quote from Wyatt Earp was, hey, the more you carry a gun every day, you better be ready because one day somebody's going to show you how to use it, no matter how good you are, right? It's like we see this with professional athletes in our research, or I'm sure you know a lot of people that get to this point, like, yeah, I'm there, and all of a sudden somebody smokes right past you, and you're like, whoa, I thought I was there. What happened? That's motivating to me.
Yeah, I have some friends that are super high-level triathletes, like 3-time world champs, right? And then the next year somebody beats them by 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I sit here and go, how is that possible? Like, the whole system is kind of getting 30 seconds faster a year or whatever it is, right? And then somebody comes out of nowhere, and assuming everybody's clean, you just never know.
Well, that's why I love the mental aspects of what we do now and understanding more of the psychology and physiology behind us, because I think that's what happens is people will focus more on themselves and more on the mental side and the mindset, and then all of a sudden they'll hit this next level without even physically applying. You know what I mean? And so there's definitely a mindset thing. I get these little nuggets from everybody I talk to. Like there's a great Olympic archer that I know. And I was like, how do you guys hit a target at 76 meters or whatever it is with 3 arrows, stacking them in a 3-inch circle? How do you do that, man? I can't even really do that with a handgun at 76 meters, and that's a laser beam. So how are you doing it with like almost this indirect weapon?
Right.
And they're like, it's simple. I just bring the target closer in my mind. And I'm like, no, come on, give me something else. He's like, dude, it's simple as that. And then when you dive into the mindset and you sit down and you talk to him, you're like, wait, there's a whole different level of thinking here. It's not just acting. It's not just execution. It's thinking.
So as a guy who studies that, how much of our brain do you think is left to use? Like as humans, are we just like in second gear out of 6 with our brains? Because I see these incidences where I'm like, there's a whole other thing out there that we're not as a culture tapping into that is just unheard of. And maybe you've seen it and can't talk about it. I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of programs out there that we are doing that we can't talk about. Not us specifically, but other agencies, other government agencies and military units that are tapping into different levels of consciousness and really, trying to get to that next gear is a good way to put it. And it's starting to happen.
Well, they have headphones now that put waves in your brains when you're training.
Right.
I mean, I don't know the science of it, but like there's a 10% increase in performance or whatever it is. Right. And 10% is meaningful when you're talking about a half of a second between first and 50th.
Yeah, and that's the good thing we have nowadays with technology and with the research. We have the ability to make simple devices like with our phones. I mean, we can use metronome systems to do neuromuscular timing for athletes or for military guys or law enforcement people or anybody. For anybody that you want to get better sleep at night, get your body better in rhythm.
Right.
That's why a lot of great athletes and like the old ancient warriors, and I bring that all the way to today, will do things like meditate in different ways. I don't mean like sitting on a hill and crossing your legs, holding your nose and fart and clearing out your mind. I'm talking like whatever it is for you that helps you come back to your center, right? And that's important to do. So, and then of course, like the headsets and things like that. Some of them are great. Some of them, are.
And that could be a poor example. That's one that I see a lot. And
but it's like we're all about tangible data. So can I get something that can measure tangible data? And then all of a sudden you'll see like, oh my God, there it is. It's right there. There's the next step. There's, like in the business rule, what's the Pareto rule, the 20-80, what's the 20% that we can focus on that gives us 80% of the results?
Exactly.
And so we're starting to see more of those 1% things that we can increase that margin, that aggregate, and move up to the next level.
So from your perspective, for somebody listening to here, is there a couple things you just wish everybody was doing to make them more efficient or sleep better?
Yeah.
Like, what would you recommend for somebody?
And these recommendations, my job, first of all, is never to tell anybody what to do or give them advice, even though sometimes it sounds like that because I'm an instructor. I love to teach and share knowledge with people.
Okay, well, I want to know. So tell me for me, because I'll go do this as soon as we get done.
I think number one, I think is obvious and this is based on a lot of failure points for me in my life and traveling constantly, which is hard, especially if you're a business guy, you're an athlete, you're on the road. Taking care of yourself. Number one, diet, eating healthy. I'm lucky. I'm extremely fortunate to be married to a wonderful master in nutrition, Ivy League, dermatologist. She's constantly helping me with research and has introduced me to a lot of the medical side of what we do. So of course I can't really get away with much at home. So that certainly is helps me. But when I get on the road, I got to be careful. I got to watch what I'm doing, especially with the industrialization of food and all the chemicals and things that we have nowadays. We're not necessarily just seeing a physical issue. It's primarily a mental issue. It's a psychological issue that we're having.
What do you eat on the road? Like when you're traveling and you're going through airports and you're
bad. I'm not gonna lie. I'll
okay, but if you're being good, like what do you look for? Let's just go there.
Number one, and everything changes every day, right? So like the whole organic and range free and stuff like that. That's constantly changing every day. So I try to eat as clean as humanly possible, and that's tough to find in a restaurant. Try to stay away from chemicals. I stay away from all dairy. So, almond milks, coconut milks, I'll stick with those. If they sometimes that works for people, sometimes that doesn't. And I try to stay away from breads, especially, like white breads is probably the worst thing you can eat with bleaches.
It's like my Achilles heel, man.
Oh, it is, dude. I love it. Right? And it's just really... but you can go to Europe, right? And you can get away with a lot of this stuff, but you can't do that here.
Is that just because it's more nutrient dense and you're actually getting...
It is, and it's chemical free. Like I just got done doing an adventure race in Iceland, and we had like cheese and meat that was just out in bags for like 10 days and it never went bad. And they're like, yeah, you guys in America, you can do that here. You don't need to worry about like throwing it away after an hour sitting on a counter. I was like, really? And I don't know the whole deal behind it because I'm not the expert there, but...
What kind of race was it?
It was a 10-day, first time ever powered paramotor adventure race. Nobody's ever done it. So we did most of the island in 10 days with 10 of the top pilots in the world. What
a cool place. I did a half Ironman there a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's cool.
They only ran that year and the next year, and then it's canceled now. But what a beautiful country. And it was June, and I learned a lot about how to stay warm in spandex after the race. Oh, yeah. That was one of the colder things I've ever done. I remember being 4 miles into the race and realizing I had a little Ziploc bag of like salt tablets and a couple Advil that I put in my shoes so I don't forget it at the transition. It took 4 miles for my legs to get to a point where I actually realized I was running with a lump in my shoe because I was so frozen.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine doing that. Being up in the wind and the wet and the air.
I'll tell you, we actually hit some great weather.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we ran into some paragliders over there, which is a very few people that fly on the island because the weather is probably the most volatile in the world from what they were saying. And they're like, you guys hit it at the perfect time. I think it was August we went, and the winds weren't that bad. There was some, definitely top 10 flights in my life and top worst 10 flights of my life. That's for
all
sure.
Within that window.
Oh yeah, all within that window. Because but it's so amazing that you've seen the landscape there, and to be able to fly into some of those places that you can't even get to by foot because the glaciers are melting. You can't even drive a car out there.
Right.
So we got to see things that I don't think anybody ever see, unless you can see it from that perspective, or a plane or a helicopter. But to be down low and skimming across the waterfalls and everything, that was a trip. But
it's such a movie set out there. And now I feel like everybody's going there in the last year or two. It's like the new destination.
Like Oblivion's my favorite movie with Tom Cruise, and they filmed most of that there. And I was like, I got to go there and see that place.
Oh man, the black sand beaches and all that stuff.
Yeah. So
wait, we skipped over something. We were back to YouTube, and I think the story is you filmed yourself in a firefight.
Oh yeah.
Al Najif, is that the
Al
right?
Najaf, yeah.
Najaf.
Yeah. So,
this is when you were with Blackwater, right?
Right.
And you told me this story the other night, but I just want to hear this one story. I think people think this is fascinating because this is kind of like one of those movie stories, and it's cool you can talk about it.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of things that we personally don't know of what and why certain things happened. We still question some of the decisions that were made in those couple of days. But all we knew is that there was a team of our guys that were stranded. Basically, the entire city had been overrun by the Mahdi army.
It wasn't the leader kind of said protect the city at all costs type thing, and that fired them all up. And
right, that was al-Sadr.
Al-Sadr, yes.
Yeah, and so Muqtada, and there's something happened that I'm not sure about, and I don't really talk about before we even got there, and that created this heavy tension. And of course, it was that time of year where everybody was going to the Golden Mosque to pray, so it was just a massive influx of everybody from all over the country and insurgents from outside the country as well. And we thought it was a pretty typical mission. Hey, go down and support these guys. And we did. We got clearance by the ambassador to go in and
so
get these guys
basically
out.
There's a group of how many guys are you talking? That are stranded.
The numbers down there of the Blackwater guys, because they basically have a small little team down there protecting the Coalition Provisional Authority's main guy, right? He runs that city like a mayor almost. And then you have Ambassador Bremer's kind of the president in Baghdad, the capital, that communicates. So our job is to protect all these people around the country.
Sure.
Our job was to protect Ambassador Bremer, but we had all the assets. We had the helicopters, the resources, everything that we needed. These guys didn't. So we had a small team down there, probably 10 guys, I think, maybe a couple more. But then there was a company of Spanish troops there, mostly non-combatant troops, a couple of El Salvadorians, and that was about it. But the Spaniards were shut down by their prime minister because the Madrid bombing had just happened. So they said no Spanish soldiers allowed to fire a shot or you'll be court-martialed, from the story that I remember that day. So now IEDs going off, people are getting shot, killed, and the Spanish soldiers are not allowed to fire any of their weapons.
And sorry, so there's how many people? The people that are stranded. Is it like 20 people?
So it's probably about 20 of the Americans.
Okay.
And if I had to guess, I don't know off the top of my head, probably I'd say maybe 50 to 100 Spanish troops, and there was a bunch of other,
the
U.S.
Spanish
personnel
troops
and
couldn't
personnel
fire
there.
anything.
No, they did it first. They really got on it first. The first contact that happened because the gate was breached, and then they were shut down after that. And that's when we started getting calls saying, "Hey, this is not good. We might not make it through the night. They can't shoot back. We don't know what's going on." We're fighting as hard as we can, but now they're starting to dial in mortars on us and all this stuff. Just kind of like a lot of people compare it to 13 hours, the Benghazi fight. Like they call this the Benghazi of Iraq. A couple guys have said that. And so after a few hours of getting these mixed signals going, hey, what's going on? The coalition commander up in Baghdad and Ambassador Bremer were kind of like, hey, everything's fine. Hey, that's not what I'm hearing. Yeah, sir, it's good. Don't worry about it. They're just a bunch of contractors. And like, wait, there's U.S. personnel there as well. And Spanish, yeah, they're fine. I'm pulling them back. And that's the story that I got from the headquarters side of the house. And at that point, as they were exfilling and evacuating to another camp that was about 20 kilometers away, that's when they got trapped and nobody else could leave. And that there was a communication gap there and nobody knew that for a while, but the guys on the ground in Blackwater said, hey, we're stuck. We're not leaving. We need help. And so that's when Bremer's like, I'm done. I'm making a decision. You guys volunteer mission, because we're not allowed to engage, obviously, in combat operations.
You say volunteer mission?
It is, yeah. That's pretty much what
whoever wants to go.
Yes.
Of course. For you guys, is that like you're rubbing your hands together, like, all right.
Well, I was actually on office watch at the time, so I'm listening to everything going back and forth. I'm listening to the calls with SecDef and the generals, and I got Ambassador Weber looked at me and said, "Hey, go get your boss." So I called my boss in, and he basically said, "By any means necessary, I want you to go in, and I'm authorizing you guys to, by any means necessary, get these guys out, help them out in some way." So my boss looked at me and says, "Haley, you ready?" I said, "You don't have to ask me twice, boss." And he said, "Let's get them all fired up, go brief the team." So I went over and got everybody collected, and we went over and did our briefing at the airfield. And that's when it was like, hey, this is the unknown. This is not our job. But the ambassador is really worried about these people's lives. Our teammates are down there, and we're going to do anything necessary to get them out. So we did. We jumped in our little bird helicopters and flew about 75 miles south.
And you're not in Blackhawks. You're not in. I mean, these are little. Slower moving, right? Pretty exposed little choppers,
they're not the military MD 500 little birds like you'd see in like Black Hawk Down where they're scraped. There's not miniguns, there's not rockets on the side. It's just us hanging out with machine guns.
Like a little bubble kind of thing. And,
yeah, which is good in case it crashes because it's an egg. It rolls. It's kind of a little.
Which is good in case it crashes.
Not many people know that, but yeah.
Okay.
The survivability rate's a little higher. So yeah, we have no anti-missile systems or radars on them. We're 100 knots, 100 feet as fast as we can get there, and that's how we operate every day. So we're used to that anyways. We fly all over the country. But yeah, once we were going in, that's when the Army was pulled out. We ran into some Apache pilots, and they said, "Hey, it's too hot. You guys are crazy for going in there."
But Apaches are like the deadliest warship known to man, right? Like if an Apache pilot's saying, "Don't go in there,"
of course,
doesn't that make you flinch a little?
Yeah, we're like, "Wait, what? Like, why are you guys coming out? Is it that hot to where Apaches? We've never heard of that. Why would you go in at this point?" And they're like, "Look, we've been called off. We don't know why. We don't suggest you go in." So they knew we were coming, and there was a little communications going on there. And we said, "Hey, we don't care. We're going in anyways." And they're like, "Hey, good luck, Godspeed." So we jumped in, and that right before we jumped in, we said, "Guys, this is the line of departure here. If you go, you can't turn back." So we did. We went in, and it was. The city was obviously in shambles. It was shut down. There was people everywhere running around. There's a lot of shooting going on, a lot of burning vehicles, bodies all over the place. So is it like Black Hawk Down flying in? It's kind of like it's a bunch of tan buildings. Some are on fire. There's gunfire all over the place. Pretty much. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I mean, if somebody hasn't ever been in a situation like this, like how would you paint it? I'd paint it, I guess, what we were told. It was one of the largest insurgent assaults in the history of the war. And what's that mean as far as numbers? Meaning 1,500 average insurgents, approximate insurgents with our 1,500 versus 20 plus whoever you guys are, which 20, is 10 or 15. 30 guys total maybe, yeah. And then, of course, not everybody could shoot. So now we came in with 12 more guys, but 6 of those are pilots. Well, hey, you guys don't get shot. We might need you to get out of here. Right. So now we got 6 of us adding to the ground team that's already there. So you don't have a lot of gun guys, shooting. So I happened to bring a sniper rifle with me. I don't know why. I typically didn't fly with it. I shared a counter sniper rifle sometimes with one of the other snipers on the team. And was that your job? You were a sniper on the team? No, I was actually I was a protection specialist for the ambassador at first, and then I went over to the air team because of my surveillance and reconnaissance background. So I was big. So more like a body person, kind of staying close to a person. Yeah, and then I went over to the air team after that. So then our job was to fly over the motorcade anywhere he went and do perimeter security. So if anybody tried to attack the motorcade, all the little bird helicopters would come in and take care of that really quickly. So I transitioned to that team because I did a lot of aerial site intelligence gathering. So any site we go to, I was the video and photographer guy based on my background, and that's why I had cameras on me. So I land, and one of my guys, one of my buddies now, Ben, he's like, "Man, you got a sniper rifle." He goes, "Dude, get that thing up to the roof." And I was like, "Sure." And I grabbed it out of the ready room because one of the guys there was like, "Hey, you might want to take that." I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And I grabbed it. But it wasn't my rifle. It wasn't zeroed to me. I had no idea what the dope was on it. And so now I'm taking this rifle in a combat. But you're proficient with that. Oh, yeah. I'm proficient in weapons. So it's kind of like grabbing a gun that you don't have sight in for you, but you know how to sight it in. I can figure it out pretty quickly. Right. Yeah, okay. Especially the quick starter in me. And was that a big lucky, or you don't like the word luck, I know, but was that a meaningful
decision to grab it versus not taking it?
I mean, I'd say it's certainly helped because the better you can see, the better you can ID. You can positively ID a target, and the better you can shoot. Right. So yeah, having the only glass or the scope on the whole rooftop that day, I think certainly enhanced our ability to see and call out targets and use supporting arms in conjunction to that. So yeah, that certainly helped having a little bit better eyes and optics.
So you go up on the roof and then you set up a GoPro?
No, we didn't have GoPros back then.
Or a camera of some sort.
So I had my, I think it was a Sony camera, and that I used for just the surveillance stuff. And this is a few hours into the gunfight. I was going in my bag to get something to eat because I was starving, and I had I think a power bar or something in there. I saw the camera. I was like, maybe I should just run this just in case something happens so people can see what's going on here, because that's what I typically did anyways anywhere I went. So I turned it on as I'm on the sniper rifle, and
I watched it the other day.
Oh, did you?
It's amazing.
Yeah, and so that fight pretty much a total of 2 days that we held off 1,500 insurgents and made it out. So only a few guys got hit, and we were, a lot of people say you're lucky. A lot of us, if you ask a lot of the operators on the team, it's like, hey, it was just another gunfight to us, man. And it really was. I mean, we've all been I had multiple combat tours before that and after that. So yeah, I look back, I'm like, it was a substantial fight. I mean, it was a weird, different situation. There wasn't a planned mission. It's like, hey, we're going to go hit this target and take out this high-value guy because he's building bombs, and we're going to do surveillance on him for 10 days, and we're going to go in and take him out. Right. It was like, get in a helicopter, grab all your shit, and let's go. Let's hopefully get everybody out alive.
But it's also very much the difference between a highly trained individual and some dude who just got thrown some crappy gun with bullets in it and they're spraying them around, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big difference with the Blackwater team there. And there's a big rift between the military and the private military contracting world. And, a lot of people that even might hear this go like, oh, these are mercenaries. Like, look, that's a derogatory term to us, because most of the guys that I was with on a team most of them were still reserves or National Guard guys. Right. They're still serving their country. They're still over there putting foot to ass for their country. They still are taking into considerations the American government and our policies and what we're trying to do to help people there. And then we go back home, we do our reserve work, our guard work, we go back overseas. And then all the guys on the team were all special operations guys. So now we come in and somebody says, hey, you're a mercenary. I'm like, look, mercenaries a term for somebody that's doing it out of their own monetary gain, and that's it. No, we're not in it for that. And so we're all taking that special operations, basically capable unit into this firefight. And I think that, of course, is going to make a big difference. Yeah, because we're all precision shooters. You can see from the video, everybody's kind of chilled out and relaxed, and we're laughing, we're joking when we need to, and we're fighting when we need to.
Do you think that's why Blackwater got such a bad name, is just because people thought it was guns for hire? Oh, and there was no kind of hearts and minds in it? Maybe that's the wrong term, but the military is a job, right? It's just, I think at a certain level, Aaron Rodgers gets paid more than a rookie quarterback that's a second stringer, right? Right. And it's kind of like that, right? I mean, at some point,
there's going to be that, and that's a big misconception out there. It's like, oh, you guys are making $150,000, $200,000 a year, and I'm like, yeah, but we don't have healthcare anymore, we don't have housing anymore, we don't have life insurance anymore, we got to pay taxes, and now, and guess what? We're making the same as what you basically did.
Truly a contractor.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a small business owner then at that point, and there's a lot more.
Yeah, you get hurt, you get injured. Yeah, the company's going to take care of you the best you can, but you don't have big green military money or the VA to support you anymore. So
is it hard to get health insurance if you're working for Blackwater?
Yeah.
I would imagine that's an expensive policy.
It is, yeah. But I think that's the big difference I like to tell people, and I won't sugarcoat it for anybody, because it's not just Blackwater. That just happened to be the catchphrase word, the name, the branding that was responsible for some irresponsible shootings that had happened, that there's still mixed up stories on.
Are there a lot of organizations like that? Not just Blackwater?
Oh yeah, there's a ton of organizations.
How many do you think?
I mean, some of the main ones, there's probably over 10, that are out there, and then all the smaller companies that are doing stuff. And everybody sometimes has a different mission or different contract, whether it's Department of State or whether it's DoD contracts or working for other agencies. But what I know happened, because I see it in business a lot, I see when you're successful at something, which the founder Eric did a phenomenal job of creating this team of people that could go over and take a lot of the other duties away from the U.S. military, because their operational tempo is so high at that point, they don't have time to start to do executive, or combat protection details, because a lot of people don't realize, like Secret Service or bodyguards, right? There's a big difference between that. One's a brains, one's a bronze. So in special operations, Delta Force, Navy SEAL teams, Force Reconnaissance Special Forces teams, and so on, they are the ones that did protective security missions for diplomats, for generals, for anybody that needed protection on a very high level. Because like imagine if you have the president get attacked, do you want the most high precision shooters possible and thinkers on the team? Absolutely. Right. So that's why it's so hard to get in those teams. What happens is we are very successful at the job of protecting these people, especially the most high threat principal in PSD history, Ambassador Bremer, or even over any U.S. president. We did such a good job that, of course, the government turns around and say, hey, we need 2,500 more of you guys or something like that. And then they turn around like, hey, roger that. And next thing you know,
and it gets diluted. There's not 2,500
guys like us sitting around waiting to just go overseas. They're not. They're either still in the military or they're retired. I'm like, I'm done with that stuff. Or, you all of a sudden go, wait, we have to lower standards. And that's what happened.
Is the reason like contractors like Blackwater exist, is it purely just the speed at which they can operate, or are there other reasons why something like that is necessary on top of our armed forces?
Again, like it goes back to the operational tempo of the military. You've got so many different missions you're trying to accomplish, and then you have these other missions that other people could come in and do very well or even better. So like the combat protection detail, for example, is something that a company like Blackwater or some of the other companies out there can really focus on 100% and make that a primary mission, a very specific mission, versus taking a SEAL team or another special operations team like us and saying, hey guys, I know you're doing a lot of deep reconnaissance and direct action missions, but we also need you to protect this guy at the same time. We're like, okay, we're going to fit that in,
Sure.
So that's when they come in and say, hey, there's a requirement here, just like in business. There's a requirement for this. Let's fix it so we can help the military so they can focus on their high value missions, and then we can focus on the things that we're good at.
Got it.
That's what I think the kind of process was there when it started out.
So when's the last time you were overseas? In that capacity,
2006, I think. 2006. Yeah, it's been a while.
And you've had a pretty crazy career since then. I mean, you were CEO of Magpul.
I was the CEO of Magpul, for a couple of years.
You have your own company now.
Yeah.
Haley Strategic Partners, correct?
Right.
So, you told me the other day, and I read some stuff online that you just learned how to make like you saw a need. And I mean, down to like learning how to sew even. So here we've got a guy that's in, Blackwater and sniping people off roofs, and now you're sewing.
I can also sew
harnesses and whatever.
I can cook too.
Are you just generally like a curious person that wants to know, like, or are you just you're just a problem solver? And it's like, okay, well, if I have to learn to sew to fix the problem, then that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I think that's, again, maybe an innate thing. I was also, of course, raised, like we were talking about the other night on the farm. It's like you got to fix your problems, right? Mm-hmm. When the tractor goes down, when you got to improvise and overcome and adapt, you're the person that's probably going to end up doing it, because you don't want to go back to dad and say, Dad, I couldn't fix it. He's like, well, really, why? So, I was out of resources. Oh, you're telling me you're not resourceful then. Okay. Right. So I was taught from a very early age by my mother, who was phenomenal, my father, my brother as well, to be resourceful, right? To not rely on resources. And when you have them, great, right? I mean, it's great to have all the money and technology and education in the world, but I'm born with those things. And I think that's what, kind of flipping around here is, some of the societal issues that we have today is everybody wants it now, man.
I was just going to say that. Like, I mean, it's a diminishing skill.
I got frustrated in the waiting room out there because my Instagram was like not uploading fast enough. I'm like, take a deep breath. Hold on. Did I just fall into that? Are you serious?
You said it, not me, man.
I know, right? So, I'm pretty good about that stuff. I have specific times that I do those things, right. But sometimes I get bored and I'm like, okay. But I guess I was always the MacGyver as a kid with my friends and going to the military. If somebody broke something, I'm like, hey, I'll go try to fix it. And I'll go down to supply and ask for something. I'm like, yeah, we don't have any more. I'm like, guys, we got to improvise. Let's duct tape it up, Yeah. And so, I started having those issues a lot more, and I'd call companies as I got into more of a staff position and said, hey, I got a great concept. We're out here in combat right now. Can you guys help me with this, make this? So like, well, what's wrong with the current stuff we have? It's not broke, don't fix it kind of concept. Or, we can certainly do that, but it's going to be 1,000 or 10,000 minimum, order quantity to do it. And I'm like, what does that mean? I had no idea.
Right.
And next thing you know, either it never happened or that company was taking the product and copying it. And I'm like, wait, what? That was my idea. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, you know what? And I think I was telling you, I was looking at a fork one day. I was like, how somebody made this,
right?
And I'm going to figure out how to make it. How hard can it be? And so I started getting into a little bit of machining. So I'm self-taught machinist and metal work, and of course working for, injection molding companies in the past and learning that side of it just a little bit more.
Right.
And then sewing was always kind of a thing that I did. My mom taught me that, and, home ec used to be a thing, right, in school. And anytime somebody had a problem, I'd say, hey, yeah, I'll fix your hole in your legs, or hey, you want a pocket here, hey, you want to build a sling for this or that, or overhauling complete equipment. And I just got known as the guy that did that, and I really, truly enjoyed it. And then I think I saw a calling there when I was contracting and back and forth starting my other company. I said, well, if I create some of the ideas that I know will help fix things and give people other options, well, that might help me build up a training company as well at the same time. And then I can make money while I sleep at night, while I'm helping people, and then help people on the road training every day.
Because training is kind of your passion, right? Like that's what you really want to do is really educate people.
It is, yeah.
But this is more of a well-rounded solution. So now you can design products that you can train people to use, and you're 200% better off versus
right. 100%. Yeah, the core is definitely going back to that again, knowledge transfer, and helping people. Sharing my experiences, sharing our research, sharing my team's research and their experiences through, again, success based on failure. And that's awesome when you see somebody, clicking the light bulb on, not because we told them so, because I'm very careful about using the word teacher or instructor, because I don't believe you can actually teach somebody anything. I believe that you can only share a pathway to a door that somebody has to open themselves if they want to, right? It's kind of like the GPS analogy that I always use in my classes. Like we use GPSs to get everywhere from A to Z every single day. But is that GPS attached to the car? Does it turn the wheel, or do you turn the wheel? So that's what we always make sure people understand is like, look, we're just like these great organizations that put all this information into this so we can do trails and roads and cities and villages and go to the mountains or wherever you want to visit in the world, but everybody's going to take a different path to get there. And so that's where we focus more on people instead of just products or technology or anything like that.
So the training you guys do, there's gun training or firearms training, there's survival camps that you've done. What's the bread and butter of it all? I mean, this is because I've looked at your stuff over the last couple of days. We just met, so I'm like digging in, trying to figure out like what's the essence of this guy and what they're doing. And the one thing that I keep coming back to is it's a lot of mental and physical. It's like, I was watching videos of you in a gym, making sure if you're on one knee that your stance is wide, because then it gives you you can slide back and forth. You have more range of motion to acquire a target, I guess, and more stability when you're shooting. And then I see people at the range where you're just timing them and making sure they're making all the right moves. And I don't know if that's like muscle memory. And then we were talking about dropping guys off in a helicopter and Telluride and having them, catch rabbits. So it's pretty wide, but
it is.
Is there a base to it?
And, as you know, in business, it's always a double-edged sword, right? It's like if you do too many things, you can not focus on one.
Right.
So I take that core of one of our mottos is thinkers before shooters, right? So going back to that, not run towards it, think towards it, think towards it. So what does thinking mean? Number one, be proud to know where you came from, right? Number two, never be happy with where you are. And number three, always have that vision for where you're going in the future. So I kind of set the structures up for our training classes. So a deliberate practice model. I don't care what people get out of my class in the 3 or 6 days that they come to it. I care what they get on day 4 or day 7 if they came to 6 days. What can they take with them? And I see a lot of programs out there, not just in my world, because I've studied professional chefs, I've studied ballroom dancers, I've studied professional athletes, pilots. I love diving into the minds of other people. And that's where I think I woke up one day and realized that I've learned more about myself and become a better performance athlete and shooter and tactician in the last 4 years of doing research, this is many years ago, when I first started, than I had in my entire career in the military and special operations. And not one answer came from that block of my life. It came from those small 4 years of looking outside. And I was like, I need to be adaptive. I need to wake up a little bit and not be stuck in this bubble. And that really helped me starting to see different things, from business strategies to different ways to public speaking, going to schools and learning how to actually engage with people and inspire and educate and empower them, not just, bark orders at them like we used to do in the military, which there's good reason for that sometimes. And that kind of translated into even our product development, like how we think differently about how we think before we build this product model, before we go into R&D.
It's teaching people to think for themselves, right? It's not just like 1 + 1 = 2. It's like it's troubleshooting what you don't know you're going to see tomorrow, right? Like having the skills to solve something that isn't on the test today.
And that's what I always say is see the forest, right? How do we help people see the forest more so just that tree right in front of them? And that takes a lot of deliberate practice. Again, it takes a purpose. It takes thinking a little outside the box, which is what we're known for in our industry. We're very unpredictable, and I like that. I like being unpredictable. Maybe that's a military thing. You never want to be time and place predictable, but in business, I don't think it's good to either. And with that, it helps me not get mud sucked into one avenue, right? And I like that. That's what I have a team of guys for. And I'm the quick start, I'm the creator, I'm the visionary guy in my companies. But I have a staff of people that are highly, highly trained in research and fact finding and following through on what they need to help me accomplish. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And of course, without me, they wouldn't be able to do what they do. So that's always a struggle as well. But the ability to just think outside that box allows me to help people understand specifically through science. And that's the hard part in my industry. If you start barking orders at people and say, hey, this is what I did in the military, or this is what I did as a law enforcement guy, this is what I did as a professional athlete, this is what's going to work for you. They're going to be like, cognitive dissonance, boom, automatically light bulb, right? And it's like, yeah, that's just not comfortable. I don't like that. So then we let science talk for us. So when somebody says, well, you shouldn't do that because you're not going to be as stable, or, like taking a knee, I'm like, well, let's bring in our kinesiologists and our biomechanics experts, right. And actually, you can have a conversation with them and then see if our theory, supports or not. And they go, okay, I get your point. And so and all we did was allow them to see inside themselves a little bit more.
Sure.
Where we don't get
kind of the why
stuff
behind something versus just the facts of it.
And that's my jam, is the why. I'm always going to ask why.
So what do you think are going to be the biggest gains in human performance in the next 10 or 50 years based on what you're seeing right now? I mean, is it like you see these companies like On It or something where they're giving you like a pill you take that's supposed to make you think better? I mean, is that stuff... Is that real? Is that where we're all going? Is it more how we're being taught in schools, or?
Well, I mean, I certainly hope that it's going to be more the mental application behind what we do. I do a lot of neuroscience studies. I have psychologists on our staff. We do a lot of neurofeedback and brain mapping. So I think with that alone, that small thing, because there's so many other things that we could do, gives you an actual tangible result of what your brain and what your brain waves are doing. And that's what's going on in us right now. Our brain waves are driving everything we do. So like right now, I even notice because it gives me more self-awareness. So I'm a very sympathetic, overdriven person, specifically because maybe, cortisol imbalances and adrenal issues and jumping off a balance in combat, whatever. So I have to really take that breath. I have to really, like every day I'll go in and I'll always do some type of aerobic exercise after I try to start healthy with the diet. So whether it's racquetball and table tennis is the number one aerobic exercise you can do for your brain. People don't know that.
Really?
It's just it's because it's such a fast-moving hand. Yeah, so you're really lighting up endorphins in your brain, which is basically nutrients for your brain.
So you're saying like playing table tennis once a day will actually make you more efficient as like a business person in solving problems.
Yeah, neuroscientists have proven that. Just like doing neuromuscular connectivity exercises or tapping or metronome systems, musicians, right. They tend to be more in rhythm and can almost articulate a little bit better, like with words or movement, than people that don't understand rhythm. And I think that's where you see the difference in a lot of athletes and people like high-risk sports or extreme sports or military, is they have more of that innate ability to have that neuromuscular rhythm and timing better. So right. I put that into my classes with simple little drills that we pull out of our labs. Because we use neuroscience measurement tools that allow us to see ourselves at the millisecond or the thousandth of a second. And so to be able to time yourself down to a thousandth of a second and see it and know when you're on that exact mark is something I would have never fathomed doing 5-10 years ago.
Are there apps for this?
No, you'll see a lot of the big name brain apps and stuff out there. Of course, I brought that right to our docs and said, hey, what do you think about these? Is this something I can do on a daily basis? Right. And they're like, in moderation, because you can actually change your brain waves in a negative state as well, because there's no tangible feedback to say, oh wait, you need to stop here. Let's go back and work the waves a little bit differently.
So you could go down a wrong path and get sloppy or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think that's the challenge, is taking this to the populations, right? People that have access to these facilities or technologies. great.
Yeah.
I'm
a big believer in the neuro stuff, man. I'll tell you from being, honestly, I'm a 100% disabled guy. I'm pretty beat up. But I'm fully functional only because of my daily regimen, only because of doing, these type of things, taking care of myself in the morning, where I used to go, savior complex, put the world before me. And next thing you know, I start like falling down and going down that spiral of death.
You can't save anybody.
Right. And so that's what I would say. Be the best you can possibly be for yourself, because the better you are, the best that you can be, the byproduct is automatically helping everybody else that you want to help.
Sure.
And so you got to take that time. You got to set that healthy boundary up. And so by finding a lot of these experts, help with my wife's help and a lot of other great mentors' help to establish this program to share with other people, I think that's where we all need to start thinking. And I hope there's, from my research, I hope there's no pill that you can just take one day, because of course there's going to be some type of side effect to that. It's like a lot of people will take different types of mental enhancement drugs, or Adderall, for example, right? Well, it's certainly going to work. Absolutely, it does work. We see that, but guess what it also does? Now you start getting dead spots or decommunicated parts of your brain that shut down because they almost want to go in atrophy because maybe your prefrontal cortex is so lit up all the time.
Well,
it's
just like
movie,
if you work
one part of your body, the
guy's taking the pill. I can't remember what's the dude's name. I'm talking about Minimalist.
Yeah.
He's taking all, but if he doesn't keep taking it, it's like,
and that's what I think will happen.
Yeah.
And that's where I love the brainwave development, because we can literally take and change somebody's impulsivity. So me being a highly sympathetic person, or my autonomic and sympathetic nervous systems are constantly fighting each other, I'll go do things like biomodulation therapy. It's a simple device.
What is that?
It's a friend of mine who's out of California. He's phenomenal at it. I'm starting to study it more now, but he's one of the only guys that's ever been able to help me with all my issues that I've had. Because I'll get neuro headaches within a couple hours, maybe once every 2 weeks, and I will start vomiting and shutting down. I'm on a couch. I can't move.
Really?
Not done. Like if you saw me, you'd be like, that is not who I know. And then next day, boom, I'm back up fully functional again, and nobody can figure out what it is. And there's a lot of guys out there with these types of issues. They a lot
of guys that were in your line of work?
Yeah, toxicities, chemicals, we're around a lot of things that we probably shouldn't be around, obviously. And then trauma, of course, creates these differences in people. So, like biomodulation is, there's certain devices by a doctor that's a very interesting guy. And his name is slipping my mind right now. And he developed these devices, and he actually beat like 2 of the worst cancers in the world by starving the cancer out. And he has this whole theory on it. And it's a basically electrical device that you can charge your meridians in your body. And so if your body's all out of whack, like I'm sure, you athletes, we get beat up all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So I wake up, my hips are like 3 inches off. I'm like, that's not right. And you push yourself back and whoa, what's going on? And then instead of going to a chiropractor, which he is, he has a different method of how he does it. He'll use a biomodulation therapy and charge your meridians and balance your autonomic and sympathetic nervous systems first. And he'll show you in the mirror your alignment off. And then 5 minutes later, he'll show you again you're completely straight, because he fixed the biology of your body. He just centers everything. And then he'll do his adjustment after that. So there's not as much controlled trauma. I'll introduce you guys. It's amazing. So little things like that, neuromuscular. So every morning I go in, if I'm not doing racquetball with my professional racquetball player guys that I know, then I'll do the neurofeedback stuff in my offices, because we have all the stuff available. So that makes me think sharp. It makes me articulate my words carefully. It makes me make better business decisions, or move faster, think faster. And
so for you, the morning's more mental than physical? Because a lot of times what I do is I'll go just for a long trail run, and I always feel the best when I get to my desk when I've done 7-8 miles of hills and just nature, and I don't know, I sit down and I'm like clear, but I've never just played racquetball or table tennis.
I don't just play that. I'll still go and I'll do my workouts, and I have to be very specific how I do them. I do a lot of I'm extension intolerant, as they call it, I guess. And so I use these different types of muscle activation therapies in my workouts. I'm still working out, but I'm doing it different with bands, so I don't hurt my back anymore, my neck, or shoulder issues. So I can still stay fully functional. So there's so many things out there that I think are on the cutting edge that we're just researching and trying to introduce. But a lot of the bigger companies are like, yeah, you don't need that stuff. But it's like, wait, these are the little guys that are going to pop up and shock you one day.
Right.
And so those things, but then of course, that's why I come up here in the summers for a couple months, because I want to clear my mind. I want to fly every single day. I'm hiking up to 10,000 feet and jumping off. And that's my meditation, high performance meditation.
Now, when you say jumping off,
I'm a big, and ever since I was a kid growing up flying, I loved the sky. I love like being up there with nothing else, right? Nothing can nothing can touch me when I'm in the sky. And so I, of course, joined the military. I stopped flying planes with my dad because I didn't have time to stay current. Of course, I got into parachutes and became a big professional skydiver for a long time. And then got into paragliding. Then I got into speed flying, which is what I'm talking about. And then powered paragliding is what I love to do now. But basically, it's hiking up with a backpack on and deploying on a little parachute or a glider and then running off and slaloming down the.
So do you have a motor of some sort pushing you? Or you just
no, this is just like this morning. I hike up to the top and lay it out behind me and just start running, and it fills up with air, and you shoot down the hill about 60 miles per hour or however fast you want to go, depending on the size of the parachute. Really
wow! How far off the ground are you?
We try to stay as low as possible because that's the fun part. It's like map of the earth flying.
Right.
It's not paragliding. We are soaring. It's like 2-hour hike. You're exhausted. You love the agony, the misery, the pain, and then there's that reward with that 1-minute flight to the bottom.
it's like running your turn skiing kind of.
Well, I gotta get home to take the kids to school quickly, so I gotta get up and get down as fast as I can. So, and I don't like hiking down.
And I bet you time yourself.
I do. I'm not gonna lie.
I didn't see that one coming.
I don't like the times right now, but I'm trying to get better at it.
Yeah.
So, but that's my meditation, and that's what centers me: is staying in the air and getting out just like you do, and going for that trail run. It's the same thing. And I think everybody needs to find that thing that refreshes them and centers, like we talked about. Centering.
I mean, so far, it's all pretty simple. It's like
it is.
Eat healthy,
really
get your exercise in, find whatever it is that makes you feel the best that you can feel. I mean. For anybody else that's listening, like what else can you recommend? I think people are always like, give me the cliff notes, give me the secrets, and I know that a lot of times it's just hard work and getting through it, but what's the path people should get on if they want to optimize their day and how they're feeling? Let me ask this though too. How do you feel about coffee? Do you drink caffeine at all?
Dude, I'm bad. I had 8 shots this morning.
8 shots?
Yeah, I'm bad. Yeah.
So have you been to Djibouti, the base there?
Oh yeah.
So the Greenleaf's there.
The
Moac, the mother of all coffee. Have you ever had that one?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I love that thing.
It's pretty good.
It's like 28 ounces with 4 shots in it or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like seeing sounds and hearing colors the first time I had that.
Probably more than coffee, especially in Djibouti.
It was like Ethiopian coffee, right? Because you're right on the border.
No, it's delicious stuff, man. They really do. That's why, it's hard to find good coffee here. It really is. Yeah. You go overseas, you get some great stuff.
I'm glad you told me that.
I love caffeine. Again, in moderation, right? Everything's good in moderation. I think too much is...
8 shots? Moderation?
Too much, probably.
Is it all at once or just kind of throughout the morning?
It depends how I'm doing, but sometimes I'll take 6 down and put the rest in the fridge. I'll go up, do my flight, come back and hit the next 2. So,
wow.
But no,
that makes me feel better because I just got this like really nice coffee machine we literally work in my basement and we slum it pretty hard, but we bought like a nice coffee machine, a Jura that grinds the beans, and I just do double espressos every time, maybe 4 at a time. And I got to a point where I wasn't sleeping well, and I'm like, maybe it's the 6 shots of espresso I had at 2 p.m.
Could be. Yeah. I definitely, I know that won't bother me as much after 2, but if it's after like 4 or 6, I need to stop doing that. But yeah, coffee's great, and I think, moderate fasting nowadays is an interesting topic.
Do you do that?
I try to.
So what's your 18 hours, 16 hours?
Yeah, if depending on who you are and what your activity level is, I need to eat in the morning, man. I can't not eat in the morning. So if I can eat an earlier dinner, I'll eat it very early, or
so
depending on what I'm doing.
And then 6 p.m. and then wait till.
Yeah, and then sometimes I'll flip it up. Sometimes I'll wait till 11 or noon to eat, and then I'll eat late at night. And try to keep that at least 12 to 16 hour window.
Right.
I'm not religious with it. It's just if I feel like doing it. And I think the best thing that's ever made me feel good, which is the hardest thing for me to do, is try to be ketogenic as possible.
I haven't even tried.
Dude, it's tough. Once you get through the first 2 weeks, it's easy at that point. It's like doing survival courses, or if you're going to go out in the woods for a long time, I'd highly suggest go ketogenic for at least a couple weeks before that, because then you don't need to eat as much. You can go forever. So I'll do that ketogenic prep before I go teach like a 5 or 10 day survival course. Especially as an instructor, I don't have a lot of time to be messing around. The students are sleeping, I'm up checking on them. I'm not. Yep. So you need to set your body up, and then we find that's the best thing that a lot of survival guys will do to prep them, because that's the caveman diet, right? That's how people used to survive.
That's probably one of the biggest misconceptions in building survival products like we do is everybody goes 2,400 calories isn't enough. And I always tell them, like, you know, I know you've got 3,000 calories of glycogen in your blood. You've got about 30,000 on your body on average.
We used to go on 10-day freaking recon patrols, and we wouldn't have that many calories with us because we don't have any room to put it.
Right.
So, and we're doing a fully functional mission with 100 pounds on our back. So I agree. That's a misnomer. You can go 3 weeks without food. Now, are you going to be hallucinating in week 2? Probably, yes. Again,
week 3 is real fun.
I've been there, you know,
right.
I know what that's like.
But in a window of 3 to 5 days.
You'll survive, right? So, and that's the emphasis. And that's the thing is, like, these survival, I know we're switching around topics here, but it's always interesting because a lot of people think survival is like prepping everything. Well, when you prep everything, you're guaranteed you're not going to be able to take it with you if something really bad happens.
So we get that feedback all the time. People are like, where's your cooking kit? I'm like, dude, if something traumatic enough happened that you are grabbing a backpack and running, you're not going to sit down and like make stuffing, you know, like move, you know? Yeah. I don't understand how, I don't know. I think people just want to camp, really. Yeah. You know, they want to have a nice outdoorsy weekend.
I got my water, I got my fire starting materials, I got my GPS, I got my everything else, and frying pan check. Okay, so now, you know, I'll find that when I get there. You know, improvise again. So some people are good at that, and some people aren't. But yeah, I think being a minimalist is important because it goes back to how I set goals and how I achieve goals. And if somebody says, like my employees, if they say, boss, we couldn't get that goal achieved because, you know, we didn't have the typical answers like time or resources, basically, which are like education, technology, and all those other things, money. I say, okay, well, so you're telling me you're lacking resourcefulness. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't have the time, okay, what do we do? We'll give them a deliberate model there at that point in time. What do I need to do, and what's the risk I'm about to take, and what are my resources available that equals my decision and action? It's a very simple fight formula we've used in special operations and military for a long time. I apply that in business. If I got to make a big decision today and spend money or not spend money, okay, what do I need to do? What's the risk I'm about to take versus that need? And then is time working for us or against us right now? So that's how I work with survival as well. When I'm in a survival situation, my job is not to repopulate the Wasatch Mountains and to start a new colony. It's to get the hell out of there. Right. So what would be my priority? Well, signaling automatically. Because if somebody comes by, I want to be ready to do that immediately. So what resources do I have available? What is time working for me or against me? And that's going to help me make a better decision and action. And then, of course, you check your time and look at the sun and go, okay, what's my next priority now? I'm in the mountains. It's beautiful here during the day, but even the weather at night here, it's what, dropping down the 40s up there?
Yeah,
it's going to get you, man. It's going to suck the energy right out of you.
That's interesting. I was talking to Eric Meyer on a different podcast. He was up on K2. I mean, they've spent months getting up to the last like attempt at the summit. And he's like, we turned around early morning.
He didn't have his frying pan, did he?
No, he was like, I forgot my frying pan. I got to go back. No, but you know, they made a decision that early. I think the most skilled people can be really realistic and regimented about their decision making. Yeah. And it's got to be hard after spending 2 months trying to achieve this goal and literally being able to see it and having it be, call it 9 a.m. in the morning, knowing you have all day and going, can't do it.
Let alone the year preparation before it took him to get there, right?
Right.
Or any of these guys. And that's the thing is we all love to take risks, especially the actual risk taker types. But are you able to see that forest? Like I know he did, and a lot of other great
people.
Saved
his life, right?
Absolutely. And are you able to sit there and look at, okay, is this I know I need to get to that mountain top, but am I about to take too much risk and ruin it all?
I can get there, but can I get down?
That's hard for people to see nowadays.
Right.
And I think if you could just think of that simple formula, it'll help you in your family decisions. It'll help you in business. It'll help you as a athlete, as a military guy, as a guy climbing the world's most evil mountain. You know, it's a simple formula that I think we need to go back to, versus because it's right in front of us, right? And that's the thing I think that I've learned the hard way. Is we always try to find what's next. Well, let's stop and look at what's right in front of us that maybe we already have.
Right.
And then that'll help us and influence our direction of where we're going in the future.
That's funny. The first thing I thought of when you said that is my hobbies, because I was talking to somebody last night. It's like I bought 3 different kinds of skis when I moved out here, fly rod, snowmobile, another bike, a gravel grind. It's like I'm not getting exceptionally good at any of these because I've got too many toys now. You have to like slow down and just kind of use what you have. That's a poor analogy, but I think about that a lot. It's you get too wide, and then you're not really optimizing anything.
Yeah, and especially when you got a busy schedule, it's hard to hit all those things you really want to do. And that's where I try to, like right now I'm on a timeline. I know I got to leave town here soon. I'm like, I got to start. Wait, I got family. That's the number one priority. What are we doing with family first? And then, because I always want to jump off that cliff, I want to jump on that mountain bike and go.
I love your risk versus reward thing though, because I was talking to Billy earlier a lot about fear, and it's like a lot of fear is just irrational. Fear is something that's in our DNA from when we used to have, like the analogy I gave was tigers chasing you in night, but I think when you kind of clear things off your head and look at what can actually happen and then make decisions based on that, like you said, then you're operating in a much better space.
Yeah, well, especially with fear, we see that, fear can either motivate us, or it can make us procrastinate, or it can make us run completely the other way. And you have to understand why each one of those things might happen, because you're not always going to run towards it, right? You're not always going to be motivated by it. But can you sit down and look at that? Hey, what do I need to do versus the risk I'm about to take? And is this going to be, am I just having too much fun? Because sometimes I do that. Sometimes I get too fast, too low. I get in the corner when I'm flying or on a mountain bike. I'm like, okay, what do I need to be doing here?
Right.
Let's be smart about this.
Right.
And of course, that takes sometimes a long time in our lives to figure out, and self-reflecting and actualizing and going, okay, I can get even better, even faster, even stronger, even smarter if I just stop and think. I don't want to say, I'm going to slow down because I'm getting older and I'm getting hurt. I'm going to be like, no, how can I be more efficient so I can still go faster, still go stronger, even as I get older?
That's like the Tom Brady thing, right? Is like he's the oldest quarterback in the league, but he's hyper efficient because he's eliminated all the things that were slowing him down.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I think that's my biggest thing. And if in business, sometimes my employees hate me and love me for it. Efficiency is key, right? Efficiency is huge, as you know, like lean manufacturing. It's like, I'm not an expert at it, but you know what? I'm going to figure it out because that's efficiency. And I'm going to, like, nobody wants to get into something they're not really passionate about, like supply chain management or doing your taxes. But like, wait, can I figure out an efficiency process here that's actually fun to do and I can actually enjoy it and take it on faster and better? And that's kind of our company, core is one of those. Dragonfly is my logo, Yeah,
what's that mean?
Well, it's an old story from when I was a kid. In a nutshell, because it can be a long story, is when I was looking for my first company's logo, my very first company, I actually brought this back when I left Magpul and started HSP.
Okay.
I was like, I need a good logo, right? I need to figure out what is something that tells me that means something to me. It's got a personal story to it. And I remember back when I was a kid, I was in Florida, northern Florida, up in the swamps and in the horse country. And I see a big old green darn or dragonfly come in and land on a bush. I'm about 6 years old. And my dad was off working on his old Camaro in the garage. And I grab the stick and I go over and I try to whack this dragonfly. And I hear this voice all of a sudden say, "Son, don't you kill that dragonfly." My dad doesn't say much. When he does, you stop and listen, right?
Right.
And I'm sure you're used to that too. And so I turn around, I'm like, "Why, Dad? It's just a bug." And he's standing there with his old 1970s peel top Budweiser, and he's like, "That's not just a bug, son. That's a dragonfly. And if you kill it, you'll have bad luck." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So then we have this tradition in our family. He says, "Since you have so much negative energy, why don't you go over on the cypress stump and turn it into positive activity for me?" Which means now, after being in the military for so many years, I'm about to get thrashed. So, and, he makes us jump up and down and get all that energy out, do push-ups, jump up and down, get down, put your hands up in the air until I get tired. And I'm like, that's probably gonna be a long time, right? So I'm standing there, my hands up in the air, and all of a sudden that dragonfly came back and landed on my finger.
No way.
And I was like, I was scared but excited at the same time. I look back at my dad, I'm like, Dad, look. And it flies away, and he's standing there with his beard. I'll never forget it. He just goes, "Now you're good, son." And he takes a swig and he goes back in the garage. And I'm like, "What do you mean now I'm good? What does that mean?"
This is like Karate Kid stuff, man.
So he says, "I'll teach you. Don't leave me alone." So anyways, we go out on the rivers, we go fishing, and he teaches me all the Native American issues, or not issues, but belief systems. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a symbol of life because it's a symbol of water. You go down in the deserts, you'll see dragonflies. It's like, how does a dragonfly live here? Because it's an amphibious creature. It's born in the water. Well, guess what that means? There's water around here somewhere. Asian arts, peace, tranquility, power, poise, presence, self-reflection, and all these other things. And he's like, if one lands on your fishing rod, you'll have good luck. So I didn't even care about fishing. I'd sit there frozen as a stone all day trying to catch a dragonfly. And then, of course, with me growing and learning through my days in the military and failure and success and sports and going, efficiency. So the dragonfly, number one, is the most adaptive creature on the face of the planet besides rats and cockroaches. But I didn't think that'd be a good logo.
Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, rat strategic partners just doesn't work. So it's adaptive because it lives a very short life, which I'll come back to here in a second really quick. And it's the most efficient flying creature on the face of the planet. And basically flaps its wings about 30 flaps per minute versus a fly or a mosquito will flap up to 1,000. Yeah, you'll see them kind of just popping. I had
no idea.
Popping. And they can articulate and fly faster than even the fastest hummingbird on the face of the planet. So that's cool because speed and efficiency, right? And I love speed and efficiency. It's the greatest hunter on the face of the planet for its size. It's all it's doing is either hunting or mating, right? So I'm like, all these things are really good. It's a good life. But and again, I'll keep it short. But the biggest thing coming back to that self-reflection aspect, where I think some of the Asian cultures used to look into the wings and the iridescence, and it's a symbol of self-reflection to look into yourself. And so I've had to do that, and it's taken me almost 41 years to figure it out. But if you look at their lifespan, they're only around for about 30 days. That's it. And they die, right? They adapt. But it's like, how is something that's only on this earth for 30 days able to be so the most adaptive and one of the longest living creatures on the face of the planet? And I'm like, it's adaptive, right? So that mindset, that execution, everything there. So again, if we look at our lives, how long are we here in the big picture of things? What's our 30 days on this planet, right? Yeah. It's not a very long time. So I kind of leave everybody with this when I tell the story is, in your short time on this earth, what are you going to do to make it a better place than what you came in it? Yep. And that kind of ties it all together for me.
Love that, man. I can buy that all day. I think that's a great place to end this, man. We could talk for hours. I have so many questions, but you'd probably be like, I can't talk about that.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Thanks so much for coming in. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I think
thanks, man.
That's a lot of good advice, and just blown away by all the stuff you've done, and glad to have met you out here. Park City's such a cool town. It's like
there's a lot of great
interesting people right around every corner for sure. Yeah. So I know you're heading out Sunday. Is that right?
Sunday. I got to head back. Yeah.
And you're back next summer?
Yeah, we'll be in the winter. Going to definitely get some skiing and some flying time in.
I'm going to start training right now so I can hang by the time we see each other.
I don't know.
Again.
You might have me on some of these things. Got to get on the trails. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it. Well, thanks for coming in, man. I really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
All right, cool. Sweet. That was great.